it was very important for the parties to know that the Trump administration stood behind the agreement that we negotiated and that President Biden put forward. And I both appreciate and applaud the very good work that Steve Witkoff did, working closely with us, with Brett McGurk, in helping to get this over the line.
Well, that's Secretary of State Antony Blinken there praising the Trump administration for its work on the Israel-Hamas agreement. Blinken also making it clear the Biden administration was responsible for the framework of that deal. All this as we learn a vote to approve the ceasefire for hostages deal could happen as soon as tomorrow. Robert O'Brien is a former national security advisor. Good to have you here. Thank you so much, Robert. What can you tell us about this deal and whether or not this will eventually fully go through?
Well, Sandra, thanks for having me on. What we have to figure out is Hamas really going to say yes? I mean, we've been at the threshold of a deal for many, many times over the past year, and every time Hamas walks away from the deal. And so we'll see if the pressure that President Trump has brought on, and look, the only reason there's a deal, let's be clear about this, and it was nice of Tony Blinken to acknowledge it, is because President Trump sent a message that there'd be hell to pay on a Truth Social post if the hostages were not released. So that's why we may have a deal, but we have to see if Hamas is going to actually fulfill its part of the bargain. So far it hasn't, but they've got until Sunday, so let's see if they do. I hope they do, because the families are desperate for these hostages to get home.
Absolutely. You touched on it just a bit, but credit for the deal and why we are so close or at the point that we are right now. I asked John Kirby about that last night on Fox Watch.
The bottom line was getting the deal, getting the hostages home, getting the war to end. And both President-elect Trump and certainly President Biden shared that goal and made sure that their teams also shared that outcome.
Am I right if I say it sounds like you're giving President-elect's team a lot of credit for getting this deal over the finish line?
We're not focused too much on the credit. I think, again, as the president said, I mean, we approach this as one team, a team of Americans to try to get Americans back home with their families.
We approach this as one team, said John Kirby. I want to get your thoughts on that, Robert.
Well, listen, for a year now, since October 7th, a year and a half, Hamas killed 30 Americans in that attack on October 7th. They then took a number of American hostages. They killed Hersh Goldberg Poland with a Marine Expeditionary Unit off the shore. They had no fear of America. They knew that the worst that would happen to them if they killed Americans is that they'd be sent to tea with Tony Blinken, which, I mean, that may be a punishment, but it certainly isn't going to deter them from taking hostages or killing Americans. And it's only when Donald Trump entered the scene, when he won the election, and Hamas realized that they're going to end up like Baghdadi if they don't let these hostages go. And look, I warned the Hamas leaders both inside and outside Gaza today, you better get these hostages home quickly, because when Donald Trump takes over, if you don't, you're going to end up like al-Baghdadi running down a tunnel with a Belgian Malinois dog coming after you if you harm another American. So you better fulfill the deal, and not just the first part of the deal, but the entire deal. Let all the Americans come home, and otherwise you're not going to be having tea with Tony Blinken. You're going to be facing Delta Force and SEAL Team 6, who are going to come for our hostages.
And that is the red line that President-elect Trump has drawn. There will be hell to pay if these hostages are not back by Inauguration Day. This was President Biden when he stepped up to talk about this deal getting done yesterday afternoon. Watch.
Thank you.
Brooks credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke? Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that was our own Jackie Heinrich who was able to get that question fired off right there before he departed the room. So obviously that discussion will continue and perhaps even a debate on that. But meantime, to your point, it is about the hostages, and phase one of this deal couldn't come soon enough for the world that has been praying for these hostages to come home. Robert, what do you see that looking like, and how confident are you that this could happen as soon as Sunday, for example?
Well, I'm hoping it'll happen by Sunday because, frankly, it's a good deal for Hamas. Again, the Biden folks put together a deal that was tremendous for Hamas to get a lot of Palestinian killers and terrorists out in exchange for innocent Israelis who are taken hostage. But I've been to that hostage square in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem where they protest. I've talked to the hostage families. I've been to the massacre site where many of the hostages were taken at the music festival. And those families are desperate. So I'm hoping it works out. I hope they'll come home. But we just have to wait and see, Sandra, if Hamas will, live up to its word and send them home. If they don't, it's going to be very bad for Hamas. I can tell you that.
Robert, always appreciate when you can join us on the program. Thank you very much.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.